Okay, so today we're going to talk about data dictionary basics. If you have a question, feel free to enter it in the chat on the Ring Central toolbar, and at the end of the session, we will have a Q&A, as evidenced by this next slide. Q&A at the end. My name's Gina Thomas. I'm the training manager at C&K Systems and your hostess for Training Bites, a digestible approach to counterpoint training. You may have noticed on item records, customer records, that not all the labels in Counterpoint are intuitive. For example, on an item record, there's a field called vendor item number. Now, that field is for vendor catalog numbers or vendor order numbers, but a new user to Counterpoint would look at that field and really not know what it means. On a customer record, you have address 1, address 2, address 3. So it's not intuitive as to where you would enter the street address or an apartment number or a P.O. box number. When you teach your buyers how to build an item, they may skip some fields during data entry, and those fields may be important to you for reporting purposes. Or when you teach your associates how to fill out a customer record, they may skip some of those fields that may be important to you for reporting purposes. You may have also noticed that when you use your keyword search, which is a very powerful way to quickly search your items or your customers, that by default on an item record, description fields are keyword searchable, categories are keyword searchable, but primary vendor is not. Or on a customer record, by default, a last name is keyword searchable, first name is keyword searchable, a phone number is keyword searchable, but zip codes are not. So what happens is that makes data entry kind of confusing. Or again, fields that need populating for reporting purposes are skipped. And without having keyword searches for values that have meaning to your associates and your buyers, it might make it difficult for your associates to find items or customers at point of sale. And ultimately, that leads to incomplete records, incorrect selling, or incorrect reporting. So today I'm going to teach you data dictionary basics, and we're going to learn how to modify label names. And the nice thing about modifying a label through the data dictionary is that modification goes throughout the entire software. So in an earlier training session or training bite session a few months ago, I taught everyone how to go to like an item record and right click in column design and change a label in the column designer. But that change only affected the item record. It didn't carry through to reporting. So that's the beauty of data dictionary, is that those label names will carry throughout. I'm going to show you how to make fields required on customer and item records. And I'm going to show you how to make values keyword searchable that have meaning to your associates and to your buyers. Now, I would never make every value on an item record keyword searchable. I would never make every value on a customer record keyword searchable because it'll really slow down the performance of Counterpoint. The very first thing you need to know before heading to the data dictionary is the SQL table name and the SQL column name, and it's pretty easy. In this example, I'm showing you an item record, and all you have to do to find out the SQL table name and the SQL column name is to come up here to the title bar, right-click, and select Labels as Field Names Control Names. And when you do that, you will see the SQL verbiage for the table, which in this example is I am item, and the SQL verbiage for the columns. So in this example, item number is item underscore no, category is categ cod. And you might want to jot those down, the fields that you want to change. In order to access the data dictionary, it's Setup, System, Configuration, Data Dictionary. When you click on the Data Dictionary button, you're going to get this screen that says Data Dictionary. And sometimes what you don't see is there's a screen behind it called the System Data Dictionary. And it's the System Data Dictionary you need to visit first to select the table and the column. So you simply just click on this button, and that'll take you to the System Data Dictionary. When you click on this button, you will be in the System Data Dictionary. You will be able to select your table. You'll be able to come down here and select your column, and then you'll customize the column, and that will return you back to the data dictionary, and you can change your labels right here. Over here, you can make fields required, or you can make them keyword searchable. When you're finished, you'll click on Save and Refresh. Sometimes it may be necessary to restart Counterpoint for those changes to take effect. So if you made a change and you go look to an item or customer record or whatever you changed and you don't see that change, that's a good indication that you do need to restart Counterpoint. And that's just closing and reopening. Easy enough. And bonus tip, I'm also going to show you how to make a picture mask for phone numbers. So when it comes to entering phone numbers on your vendor records, on your customer records, everyone enters numbers differently. Some people use parentheses, some people use dashes, some people use periods. So I'm going to show you how to make that field so the data entry is consistent. I'm also going to revisit a subject that we covered a few months ago, and that's the ability to add quantitative values to an item lookup. So for those of you that missed that session, I think you'll really like to know how to do this. And for those of you that attended that session, this is a good refresher. So with that being said, I'm going to minimize my PowerPoint presentation and jump into the software. So quick reminder, remember in the new version, you can make favorites. Favorites are user specific. It's very easy to make a favorite. You find a module, you click inside the star, and then Counterpoint will add it to your uh, favorite shelf. And again, my favorites are going to be different than George's favorites, and George's favorites are going to be different than Kelly's favorites. And you can have up to 15 favorites. I only have 12 right now, but you can have up to 15. So I'm going to start here in Inventory and Items, and I'm just going to call up an item. And something that I would like to point out to you, just kind of a tip or trick. If you do see a field in Counterpoint, you're not sure what it means. Like you see this vendor item number field, and you say, "Huh, what does that mean?" This little question mark up here with the circle around it, if you click on it, you'll notice that there's a question mark following my cursor. And then when I come down to this field and I click inside the field, Counterpoint actually pops up a box that explains what the field is for. So you can see it's for the number that the vendor uses to track the item. If you do leverage the vendor item number field, when you're purchasing or receiving, that vendor's catalog number will be reflected on your purchasing and receiving documents, but not any sales documents, just purchasing and receiving. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to change this field so that it says vendor catalog number. I'm going to come up to the title bar. I'm going to right click. I'm going to go to labels as field names, control names. I'm going to note that the table is IM item and that the column is vend item no. And I might even want to jot that down because I might forget in between now and when I access the data dictionary. So I'm just going to close out of here. To get to the data dictionary, Setup, System, Configuration, Data Dictionary. And it just takes a moment to load. Okay, so you can see it usually looks like this the first time you come in, so you don't even see that System Data Dictionary. So we need to come here to System DD, and now in the System Data Dictionary, I can select the table and I can select the column. So I'm going to use this table drop-down. I'm going to select IM, because remember I need IM item. And then all my tables are here in alphabetical order. Now I can scroll, but I'm going to be scrolling for a while. So a little tip, if you just double click on one of these tables and then just type IM underscore item, it's faster than scrolling. Same with columns. Now remember I need vendor item no. I'm going to be scrolling for a really long time because that's all the way in the V's. So I'm just going to double click and I'm going to just type vend and see how fast it finds it. Now I'm going to customize the column. And it takes me right to the main page, which is right where I need to be. And I'm going to change the display label to vendor. Well, I should spell it correctly. Category number. Or catalog number is what I want. Catalog number. Okay. Now when I click on save and refresh, Counterpoint will auto-populate the label and report label for me. So pretty handy. So I saved and refreshed. So let's go take a look at that item record. So I'm just going to go to inventory items. I'm going to find an item. So now I have vendor catalog number. Now let's look at a customer record. I'm going to go to customers and customers. And in this example, I want to change address 1 to say street address so it's more intuitive. So again, I'm just going to right click on the title bar, labels as field names, control names, and then I'm going to note that the table name is AR Cust and the label name or the column name is address 1. And again, you might want to jot that down. So I'm going to go back to Setup, System, Configuration, Data Dictionary. And that should load soon. Then I'm going to click on System Data Dictionary. I'm going to select my table, which began with AR. And remember, it's AR Cust. So instead of scrolling, I'll just double click and I'll just type AR underscore Cust. And there it is. And then I need address 1 as the column, and conveniently that's right at the top, so I don't even have to search for it. So I'm going to click on Customize Column. I'm going to come to the display label, and I'm going to type street address. And then when I save and refresh, Counterpoint will populate the next 2 fields for me. I'll exit. Now I'm going to go back to the customer record. And we will see that now address 1 says street address, which is much more intuitive. By the way, while I'm thinking about it, modifying the data dictionary is not something you teach everyone in the organization. It should be highly centralized and managed. So there would be no way I would give a point of sale person access to the data dictionary or teach them how to use the data dictionary. Just a little advice. All right, so next I want to make a field required. So on my item record, I want to make sure that when my buyers are building items, that they visit and populate this category field for reporting purposes, because it just makes sense. So I'm going to right click. I'm going to go to labels as field names, control names. It's IM item, and then the column is categ cod. So now I'm going to go back to the data dictionary. Setup, system, configuration, data dictionary. And again, I get the data dictionary. I'm going to click on the system DD. I'm going to come to tables. I'm going to choose IM, double click, IM item. There it is. And then I want categ cod as a column. So I'm going to double click, and there it is. And now I'm going to customize the column. And then I'm going to come all the way over here to where it says required. And I'm going to choose yes. And then I'm going to save and refresh. Now, depending on your install, your required fields may be blue or they may be green. In my install, they're green. So I'm going to go back to items. I'm going to just call up an item. And you can see now the category field is green, so it is required. On my customer record, I want to make email addresses required for marketing purposes. I want my people to capture an email address. So I'm going to go to Customers, Customers. I'm going to right click on the title bar, Go to Labels as Field Names, Control Names. I'm going to call up a customer just by clicking on the right facing arrow. And so I can see that the table is AR Cust and the column is email address 1. So back to the data dictionary I go to make that a required field. So setup, system, configuration, data dictionary, system data dictionary, go to the table, AR, double click, AR Cust, and then the column is going to be email. Oh, here I'm on the wrong one. So that says AR Cust cards. I got to click on the right table or I'm not going to get the column I need. So down here, I'm going to double click and I'm just going to type email. And there it is. And now I'm going to customize the column. And I'm going to come over here and make it a required field. And save and refresh. Now I'm going to exit and go look at my customer record. Customers, customers. So now you can see email is a required field. When you make a field like email required, Counterpoint is not clever enough to know that information entered on the email one line is a valid email address. So your sales associates can make up the information. And if you get a customer that says, well, I'm not giving you my email address and it's a required field, your sales associates are going to have to make up something. So you might have something generic that they can put on that type of customer that doesn't want to give their email address, like info@info.com. Again, Counterpoint's not clever enough to know that that's not a valid email address. Keyword searches. I'm going to go back to inventory items, and I'm going to talk about a lookup. So when you go into a lookup, your cursor defaults to keyword. And keyword is a very beefy and powerful way to quickly find something. So if I just type crepe, as in crepe myrtle, notice how Counterpoint finds it even though it's not the first word in the description. And if I type myrtle, Counterpoint finds it. Right? If I type tree, which is a category, Counterpoint finds everything attached to my trees. But if I'm looking for my vendor tree guys, Counterpoint doesn't find it because primary vendor is not a keyword searchable field. Earlier today, somebody asked a very good question. They said, well, what's the difference between keyword and search for? Search for doesn't search multiple fields like keyword does. Search for searches one specific field that's listed here in order by. So in other words, search for and order by work hand in hand. Now, I could use this drop down and I could choose primary vendor. And then I could click on search and type tree guys. And Counterpoint will find, gotta do the right one. Counterpoint will find that vendor tree guy. But that's an awful lot of clicking. So just to kind of recap, if I go into the lookup and I just start typing in the keyword, that's nice and fast. If I have to use search for, I'm going to have to click, click, and type. So let's make primary vendor a keyword searchable field. So again, I'm going to right click, labels as field names, control names, IM item is the table, and the primary vendor is item vend no. I'm going to close out of here. And back to the data dictionary I go. Setup, system, configuration. You're probably detecting a theme at this point. Data dictionary. I'm going to go ahead and let that load. I'm going to click on System DD. I'm going to find IM, double click, IM item. There it is. And then remember I need item vend no. Double click in the column, item underscore vend no. Okay, and then I'm going to come over here. Oh, first I got a customize column. Customize column, that returns me back to the data dictionary. And then I'm going to come all the way over here and make it keyword searchable. Save and refresh. And let's go test that. So I'm going to come down here to inventory items. I'm going to go into my lookup and I'm just going to type tree guy. So now Counterpoint finds everything associated with the primary vendor tree guy because it's keyword searchable. On the customer record, so let's go to customers. When I go to lookup, it's just like when I go to any other lookup anywhere in Counterpoint. My cursor defaults to the keyword, and I can simply type the first name of the customers, or I can type the last name of a customer, like Bill Baker's last name. Counterpoint's going to find it. I can even type a phone number, and Counterpoint will find the customer with that phone number. Now, search for, just like in the item lookup, will only search a specific column, and the column is whatever's listed here in order by. So if I want to search by zip code, if I keyword search zip code, Counterpoint says, oh, I set this up earlier, that's why it's working. So it is working because I set it up earlier. Um, but if I hadn't set it up, I could come here to this drop down. I could choose zip code, and then I could click here and search for and type in the zip code. But again, that's a lot of clicking. So it's really better and faster if my associates can do a lookup and just start typing in the keyword rather than having to click, click, and enter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click, labels as field names, control names. My table name is ARCust, and the field that I want is zip cod. So I'm going to exit from here, back to the data dictionary, setup, system, configuration, data dictionary. And guess what? I'm going to go to the system DD again. I'm going to find the table AR, double click, ARCust. There it is. And then down here, I'm going to double click, and I'm just going to type zip cod, and there it is right there. And then I'm going to customize the column. And of course, you can see here I made it keyword searchable earlier, so it's still keyword searchable. So now I'm going to save and refresh. Now zip code is keyword searchable. So I'll go back to customers, go into a lookup, and then when I type in a zip code, Counterpoint finds all my customers that belong to that zip code. While I'm here, let's look at this phone field right here, this phone field. So right now, this phone field is not formatted. So I can just type anything that I want. There's no dashes. Or I can type, parentheses. And again, no formatting. So if you have 6 different people entering phone numbers, chances are you're going to get 3 or 4 different ways that people enter phone numbers. So why not do something called a picture mask, so that way, no matter who's entering the phone number, it will be formatted consistently. So I'm going to go to right click, labels as field names, control names. My table is ARCust, and the column is phone 1. So now I'm going to go back to the data dictionary, setup, system, configuration, data dictionary, system data dictionary, tables, AR, and then of course we want AR underscore cust, AR underscore cust. There it is. And then I want phone one. There it is. Now I'm going to customize the column, but this time I'm going to click on custom. So I customize the column, click on custom. And I'm going to come down here to the picture mask and I'm going to use the hashtag sign. So it's going to be shift 3, hash, 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 dash, hash, 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 dash, hash, 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 hash. So now the field is formatted. I'm going to save and refresh. Let's go see that in action. Customers, customers. And I'll just get rid of this. So now, when I start typing, it automatically puts the dashes in for me. If I even try and do a parentheses, it won't let me. If I try and do a dot, it won't let me. Okay, so that's a picture mask. Now, I will caution you about a pitfall on making fields required and using a picture mask on phone number, particularly for those of you that have been using Counterpoint for a while. You may decide to make the category field required. And when you do that, it means it's now required for all your items. So if you currently have items in inventory where the category field is not required and then you make it required, if your buyer or somebody visits that item and they make an edit to that item, they're going to have to populate that category field or they won't be able to save the item record. So when you make those kinds of changes, you want to make sure you train your people. Hey, look, something's different. I made a field required, whether it's a customer field or an item field, and show them the behavior. When they go to one of those items without the required field being filled out, and what happens when they don't fill out the field and they try to save the record. And what will happen is they'll get a pop up that says, the category field is required or whatever field you made required. When it comes to that telephone picture mask, it's not retroactive. It doesn't go back and fix old customer records that don't have the right formatting. So this may create a little bit of chaos at point of sale. When your people are calling up an existing customer, maybe they're editing an address, they try to save the customer record, and they get an error that the phone number field isn't filled out correctly. So again, you want to sit down with your people and teach them, hey, I made a change. This is what's going to happen if you're at point of sale updating a customer record so they can see the error and then know how to react to it without freaking out. The last thing I'm going to talk about is quantitative values. So I'm going to go back to inventory items. I'm just going to call up an item. So for those of you that are multi-store, this value represents total company value, all stores combined. And then just as a reminder, the difference between quantity on hand and quantity available. Quantity on hand is usually what you started with this morning. Quantity available is your live quantity right now. So typically when you come in first thing in the morning, these two values match, but as you sell, the available is reduced. So remember, this is a company value. Now, if I want to see how many of the 32 are at each one of my locations, I can just click on this zoom here, and I can see I have 5 at Bistro, I have 4 at East, I have 23 at Main. So that's pretty handy, and you can access this through point of sale. It's particularly if you're multi-store and you're at storage and you're out of storage, you can check and see if other locations have some inventory. But what would really be nice is if I go into a lookup and I see a list of my quantitative values, because out of the box you do not. Even if you go into your column designer, none of these quantity fields are available in an out-of-the-box install. You have to modify the data dictionary. But what's nice about modifying the data dictionary to see the quantitative values is that When you go into the lookup and the quantitative values are specific to the location or the work group that you're logged into. So right now I'm logged into my main work group. So when I go into this lookup, I see that my main work group has 23 on hand, just like the Zoom showed me. See, the main has 23. Unfortunately, we cannot configure the data dictionary to show other stores in this lookup. You will only see the quantitative values for the location or work group you're logged into. The other sad part is we can't configure it to show in the table view. It's just a limitation. The only place you're going to see those quantitative values is in this lookup, not this lookup. This one won't help you. It's got to be this lookup. So I'm going to show you how to do that in the data dictionary. It's pretty easy. I'm going to go to Setup, System, Configuration, Data Dictionary. I'm still going to start at the System Data Dictionary. So I'm going to click on System DD. I'm going to use the table IM item. So double click and then IM underscore item. And then I want item no. So I'm going to double click item underscore no. You have to spell it right. There it is. Now I'm going to customize. And I'm actually going to come to the other tab. And on the other tab, I'm going to come to this line that says lookup table. You can see I configured this earlier today. I'm going to scroll over here and click on this ellipsis. And when I do, I'm going to scroll down until I find VI IM item with INV. And then on the lookup field line, again, I'm going to go to the ellipsis here, and I'm going to choose item number, which conveniently is at the very top of the list. I'm going to save and refresh. I'm going to close out of here, and then I have to restart Counterpoint. This change will not take effect unless I do that. So I'm just going to close. I'm going to restart. Okay, I'm going to go back to inventory items. Now again, this lookup is not going to help me. It has to be this lookup. And if you're looking at an existing item, you can't get to this lookup. So if you're looking at an existing item, you'll need to use your superhero. This guy here, Backman, that's your superhero. So I'm going to use my superhero. Now when I go into the lookup, there's my quantitative field. When I go into my column designer, I'm going to have a lot of quantitative fields. So I'm just going to right click and go into the column designer. And I'm going to just click on one of these and type a Q. So you can add quantity on back order. Now, this quantity on back order is not your back order with a vendor. It's a back order a customer has with you if you're using customer orders. But something that's handy for everybody is quantity on POs. So I can see if I have this particular item on an open purchase order. And then you might want to also add quantity on hand just as a comparison so you can see what you started with during the day and what you currently have available. And I'm going to click OK. Now, one of the best reasons to have these quantitative values is to chase your negatives. Because the reality is people sell incorrectly and they cause items to go into the negative. The reality is that the store may receive merchandise from a vendor or merchandise from another store, and they're so excited to have that merchandise that they just open the box and they put the merchandise on the floor. They don't receive it in Counterpoint, or they don't transfer it in from the other store. So that all causes negatives. So one way to chase your negatives is to have these quantitative values, and then you can right-click on quantity on hand and sort ascending, and all your negatives will come to the top. Then you can preview to see your report with the negatives, but of course it's going to print the entire inventory. So really what you want to do is refine this so that you're only looking at negatives. You can come into the lookup and you can select from this drop down just to see your negatives. So what you'll need to do is you'll need to come to the filter. You'll need to right click on the filter to customize it. So I'm going to customize down here. You'll need to click here on this really, really light blue line to add a condition. So I'm just going to click on it. Now, of course, Counterpoint's not psychic, so it doesn't know I'm looking for quantity on hand. It just brings over the next condition it sees. So I'm going to click on that long description, type a Q, and now I need to scroll a little bit. I'm going to find quantity on hand. And you can see Counterpoint says, okay, quantity on hand equals. Well, I don't want an equals. That's not the parameter I need. I want something called less than. So I just click right on that word equals and I select less than. Now I could enter the criteria of 0 here, but it's very awkward. So what I like to do is I like to simplify the filter before I set the criteria. So I'm going to right click, I'm going to simplify, I'm going to put the criteria of less than 0 and click OK. So now I have a lookup that I have filtered that will only return negative quantities. And so once you get that filter designed and you run the filter, you'll want to save this lookup so you don't have to do everything from scratch every single time you want to see negatives. And that's very easy. You'll come to Options, you'll save as, and Counterpoint will suggest the default. Don't do that. It'll become the default for everyone. So you'll just type what you want to call this. I called mine negative inventory. So you just free type negative inventory and then click OK. Yes, I do. And once you save that filtered lookup for negatives, it'll automatically be in this drop down right here for you to use anytime you want. So the next time you or anyone else in the organization goes into a lookup, you'll see the default. And you'll simply be able to click on this drop down and say, I want to see my negative inventory. And the nice thing about this is as items fall into the negatives, they'll automatically be added to this list. Or as items fall back into the positives, they'll be removed from this list. So then, of course, you can preview and get your report and go find out why things are falling in the negatives. Do a little detective work. Okay, so that's data dictionary basics. And again, it's not something you want to teach everyone in the organization. Please keep it highly centralized. So let's go back to our PowerPoint presentation and from the current slide. So your key takeaways today, you should know how to change labels. You should know how to make fields required. And you should know how to make fields keyword searchable. When you get your video link, so a couple days from now or no later than next week, you'll get a link to the video to today's recording, and included in that email is just a quick little survey. We really appreciate when you share your feedback and make topic suggestions. I will tell you today's topic actually came from a suggestion I got after the last session. So it was such a great session. I thought, let's do um, data dictionary, in this session. Or actually, it's the next session. If you just want to go ahead and fill out the survey without waiting for your link, www.cksystem.com/training bites survey. Our next session, this was the one that was suggested, not the data dictionary. So our next session is because of a suggestion, and we're going to talk about menu codes. Menu codes are very, very powerful. I consider them your top layer of security in Counterpoint. So basically, a menu code is a group of people. And depending on what menu code you belong to, dictates how much power you have in Counterpoint and what you can do in Counterpoint. So I'm going to teach you how to limit or expand permissions for these groups. And these permissions tie back to security codes, and that ties back to your user record. So I'll show you all of that. Another cool thing you can do with menu codes is you can create custom buttons. So let's say you have a buyer that runs 3 reports every day. and that buyer needs to go to 3 different places in Counterpoint to run those 3 reports, you can actually create a custom button for that group of buyers and drag those 3 reports into that custom button so the buyers only need to go to one place in order to run all 3 reports. Another cool thing you can do in menu codes is link buttons in Counterpoint to external programs like Excel. So there's nothing wrong with minimizing Counterpoint and launching Excel, but a little bit of a time saver would be to have a button inside of Counterpoint configured to launch Excel while you're in Counterpoint. So I strongly recommend you reserve your spot and attend that session. It will be October 7th. Same time, we do a session at 10 a.m. Eastern Time and another session at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Okay, and now with that being said, I'm ready for Q&A. And we do have a question in here. Okay, somebody said I have no microphone. Oh, that was earlier. Okay. Can the data dictionary be configured to automatically make all customer entries all caps? I believe it can, Diana. I have to research that. Now, of course, the identifier is always going to, if you're using alphas for your identifier, like for the customer number, that automatically converts to caps. But I guess what you're asking is, I want the first name, last name to all be caps, and maybe the address and all that. I'll research that and get back to you. That's a good question. I'm pretty sure you can. I just have to test it. Okay, that's all the questions I have right now. Okay, anyone else have a question before we sign off? By the way, just so you know, I know these sessions are nice, and of course they're free. But if you need something like more one-on-one, more custom, more looking at your data instead of my golf demo database, make sure you schedule a training. You can call me directly or call the training department directly at Extension 3, and we can talk about your needs. Everyone have a wonderful afternoon, and I will talk to you next month.